Story 1. The Digital Nightmare by Michael Thompson. I was home alone on a quiet Saturday night, fast asleep in my bed. Suddenly I jolted awake, hearing Siri's robotic voice coming from my phone. Confused and groggy, I fumbled for my device and shut it off, figuring it was just some weird glitch. I drifted back to sleep, trying to shake off the unsettling feeling. An hour later, Siri's voice pierced the silence again. This time I was wide awake and more than a little freaked out. My heart raced as I heard Siri responding to a strange question. What that found for us? Her eerie reply echoed in the darkness. The answer is Thursday, July 4th, 1776. A chill ran down my spine. Why was my phone acting so bizarre? I tried to rationalize it as another glitch, but doubt gnawed at me. Sleep eluded me as I tossed and turned, replaying the creepy incident in my mind. Just as exhaustion started to take over, Siri's voice cut through the quiet for a third time. My blood ran cold as I heard her speak my full name, followed by, "Here's the info for my name." Pure terror gripped me. How could this be happening? In a panic, I bolted from my room and ran to my parents' bedroom. With trembling hands, I locked the door behind me, seeking refuge from whatever was controlling my phone. As I huddled under the covers, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was more than just a technological malfunction. What sinister force was at work here? The rest of the night passed in a haze of paranoia and fear. Even now, I'm haunted by lingering doubts. Was it truly just a glitch, or something far more menacing? The memory of Siri's voice speaking my name still sends shivers down my spine. Some questions are perhaps better left unanswered. Story 2, Window of Terror, by Brandon Hayes. It was around 2 a.m. and I was deeply engrossed in an intense gaming session. The house was silent, save for the clicking of my keyboard. Suddenly, a sharp knock at my window shattered the quiet. My head whipped around, but I saw nothing outside, just the darkness of a winter night. I tried to brush it off as some prankster, but unease settled in my gut. Being the non-confrontational type, I simply closed the blinds, hoping whoever it was would get the message and leave. After a few tense minutes, I managed to refocus on my game, pushing the incident from my mind. Time passed, and I had almost forgotten about the knocking. Then it came again, a steady, rhythmic tapping that sent chills down my spine. Why were they doing this? Why couldn't they just leave me alone? Fear and frustration warred within me as the knocking continued, unabated. Against my better judgment, I decided to investigate. With trembling hands, I lifted the blinds and cracked open the window. It was the biggest mistake of my life. Two hands shot out of the darkness and grabbed the bottom of the window, forcing it up. I started screaming in terror as a hooded figure in black tried to force his way inside. Adrenaline surged through me as I threw wild punches at the intruder. In desperation, I grabbed the lamp from my desk and smashed it against his head. The impact sent him reeling back, giving me a chance to slam the window shut. I watched in horror as the dark figure fled into the night. My heart pounded as I collapsed to the floor. The realization of how close I'd come to disaster hit me like a physical blow. That single moment of curiosity could have cost me everything. Even now, years later, the memory of those hands reaching for me still haunts my dreams. Story 3. The Chimney Crash, by Sarah Mitchell. I live way out in the country, the kind of place where paved roads are a luxury. One night, as I sat alone in the quiet house, I heard a tremendous crash on the roof. The sound of metal clanging echoed as something smashed into our chimney. My pulse quickened as I strained to make sense of the noise. For the next hour, strange banging sounds emanated from inside the chimney. It should have been impossible. We had covered it for the summer. Yet the noises persisted, growing more frantic and unsettling with each passing minute. I huddled on the couch, paralyzed with fear, as my mind conjured terrifying possibilities. Just when I thought it couldn't get worse, the front door began to rattle violently. It sounded like someone was desperately trying to force their way inside. With trembling steps I approached and peered through the peephole. The porch appeared empty, but the rattling continued unabated. In a moment of reckless courage, I threw open the door. Instantly all noise ceased. An eerie silence descended, broken only by the pounding of my heart. What unholy presence had I just unleashed? As I stood frozen in the doorway, a chill wind whispered past, carrying with it an inexplicable sense of dread. That night changed me forever. Even now I find myself startling at every creak and groan of the house. What crashed onto our roof that night? What force was trying to enter our home? Some questions are perhaps better left unanswered, but in the dark of night I still wonder, and I still fear. Story 4. Footsteps Above, by Jessica Collins. It was a lazy summer day, and I was home alone watching movies in our high-ceilinged living room. Suddenly, I heard shuffling noises coming from above. My blood ran cold as I realized the only thing up there was the attic. I lowered the TV volume, straining to hear better. The shuffling continued, punctuated by creaks and thuds. My brother's closet connected to the attic, so I crept upstairs to investigate. With trembling hands, I opened the closet door and peered into the darkness beyond. The attic light was broken, forcing me to use my phone's flashlight. Each step on the rickety ladder sent my heart racing. I had barely taken 2 steps into the musty space when I heard it, the unmistakable sound of footsteps creaking across weak wooden floors. Something brushed against a plastic bag, sending a rustling echo through the gloom. Panic exploded in my chest. I wasn't alone up here. I scrambled back down, slamming the door behind me. With shaking fingers, I called my parents, begging them to come home. My dad searched the attic later, but found nothing. Yet the memory of those footsteps still haunts me. What was up there that day? And more chillingly, is it still there waiting? Even now I avoid that part of the house. The thought of what might be lurking just above our heads fills me with dread. Some spaces are better left unexplored. But in the quiet of night, I still wonder about those footsteps and what sinister presence they belong to. Story 5. Layla's Warning, by Amanda Rodriguez. I was home alone with my dog Layla, music blasting in my room. Suddenly Layla's frantic barking cut through the noise. Confused, I headed downstairs to investigate. The sound of Layla's paws thundering down the basement steps echoed through the house. Her barks grew more urgent with each passing second. Heart pounding, I flicked on the basement light. Layla stood rigid, hackles raised as she snarled at the closed boiler room door. She lunged forward, clawing at the wood as if trying to break it down. A chill ran down my spine. What had her so agitated? With trembling voice I called out, asking if anyone was there. Layla's barking reached a fever pitch. She threw herself at the door again and again. Terror gripped me. If something really was in there, did I want to see it? In that moment my courage failed. I grabbed Layla's collar and dragged her upstairs, locking the basement door behind us. Later that night, my dad discovered a ladder propped against the smashed basement window. As police sirens wailed in the distance, the horrifying truth sank in. Layla hadn't been barking at nothing. She'd been warning me about an intruder. If I'd opened that boiler room door, who knows what might have happened. That night taught me to trust my instincts and my dogs. Layla's warning likely saved me from a terrifying encounter. Even now I'm haunted by how close I came to danger. Sometimes our four-legged friends see things we can't. And sometimes their barks are more than just noise, they're a lifeline. Subscribe, my dear. Story 6. The Midnight Visitor, by Tyler Johnson. My dad worked night shifts, so I was often home alone. One night after a late movie marathon, I lay in bed struggling to fall asleep. The house creaked and settled around me as I tossed and turned. Suddenly, a loud clatter from my toy closet shattered the silence. My heart leapt into my throat. I tried to rationalize it as just a toy falling over. But then the closet doorknob began to wiggle. Terror paralyzed me as I watched it turn slowly, unlocking with a soft click. I dove under the covers, trembling, holding my breath. For 2 agonizing minutes, silence reigned. Gathering what little courage I had, I peeked out from my protective cocoon. My blood turned to ice. A dark figure loomed beside my bed, staring down at me. A scream tore from my throat as I pressed myself against the wall. The figure's head snapped towards the window, then back to me. To my horror, it simply turned and walked out of the room. I remained frozen, listening to footsteps recede down the hall. An hour passed before I dared move. Creeping downstairs, I found the front door standing wide open. Whatever had visited me that night was gone, but the terror remained. Sleep eluded me for weeks after. Even now, years later, I still check my closet before bed. Who or what was that midnight visitor? And more chillingly, why did it leave without harming me? Some questions haunt us forever. But as my grandmother always said, seek refuge in Allah from the evil of that which He has created. Those words bring me comfort in the darkest nights. Story 7. The Obsessed Neighbor by Rachel Williams. I'm 16 and there used to be this boy, Joey, living next door who was totally obsessed with me. Every single time I'd step outside, he'd magically appear too, like he was constantly watching through his windows waiting for me. Joey was 17, but super weird, and seemed to have zero friends since he was always home. I tried giving every possible sign that I wasn't interested, but this guy just wouldn't take the hint. Finally, I had to straight up tell him I didn't like him and to leave me alone. The look on his face that day still haunts me. It was this angry toddler pout, but coming from a 17-year-old, which made it way more disturbing. One night, my parents left me home alone to watch the house. I was working on a school project in my room when suddenly I felt my bed shift a little. My heart started racing as I slowly looked under the bed. I let out a blood-curdling scream as I saw Joey lying there staring back at me with those creepy eyes. I bolted out of there while he tried crawling out from under the bed. I ran straight to his house and frantically rang the doorbell like 10 times. When his parents opened up, I was hysterically telling them what happened. Joey never came out of my house, so I called the cops, even though his parents begged me not to. The police found him still in my room and arrested him. Apparently, he admitted this wasn't even the first time he'd hidden under my bed. They also discovered tons of pictures of me scattered all over his room. The most disturbing one was of me sleeping, taken from inside my own bedroom. I remembered the Quranic verse, and Allah knows what you conceal and what you reveal, realizing the depth of Joey's deception. Story 8. The Watcher in the Trees by Emily Carter. I live way out in the country and I'm usually home alone. We don't have any close neighbors, so on sunny days I'd often just relax in the yard and tan. This one time the sun was really strong and I was tanning when I suddenly noticed somebody standing in the woods watching me. I immediately sat up ready to bolt if needed. Do you need something?" I yelled out nervously. The guy emerged from the trees and walked over, saying he lived up the hill and needed help with a broken water pump. I lied and said I was about to leave and didn't have time. No way was I going anywhere with this creep. He headed back into the woods, disappearing behind a boulder. I was more freaked out than I'd ever been, so I quickly folded up my chair and ran inside, making sure to lock everything up tight. You'd think that'd be the end of it, but nope. About an hour later, I realized I'd left my sunglasses in the grass. I cautiously went back out to grab them after making sure the coast was clear. It took me a while to find my sunglasses, and when I finally looked up, my blood ran cold. The guy was back, but this time he wasn't in the woods. He was partially hidden behind our shed with only half his body visible, just staring at me. I screamed that I was calling the cops and sprinted back inside to do exactly that. The police came and took down my description of the guy. Thankfully, I've never seen him again, but I still get chills thinking about those eyes watching me from the trees. It made me reflect on the hadith, whoever believes in Allah and the last day should not harm his neighbor, if only everyone followed such wisdom. Story 9. The Stranger on the Porch by Daniel Murphy. This happened when I was really little, only 7 years old, but I still remember every detail, like it was yesterday. I was sleeping over at my grandma's house like I always did back then. She never drove her whole life for some reason, so she was constantly taking these super long walks everywhere. One day while I was there, she wanted to walk all the way to the library, which was like 10 blocks away. I was way too lazy for that, so she went off by herself after telling me not to let anyone in. My grandma was pretty strict and didn't really baby people, so it wasn't weird for her to leave me alone even at that age. At some point while I was by myself, the phone rang. Being a dumb, curious little kid, I answered it. It was a man's voice asking, "Who is this?" I said, "Danny." He kept asking if my parents were home and where I lived. I didn't think twice about it and told him I was alone somewhere in Queens. He just said, "All right, Danny, bye-bye now," and hung up. About an hour later, there was a knock at the door. I remembered what Grandma said, so I stayed on the couch. Then I heard, "I see you on the couch, Danny." My heart dropped as I noticed him staring at me through the window. He was this super creepy grey-haired guy with an ugly beard and big gut. I yelled at him to go away, but he kept trying to lure me out, saying he had candy in his truck. I ran to the guest bedroom and locked the door. Moments later, I heard the back door being messed with, followed by loud banging as he tried breaking in. By some miracle, I suddenly heard my grandmother's voice yelling at him to get out of the yard before she called the cops. I watched through the window as the guy took off in his beat-up truck while Grandma tried to get the plate number. She couldn't remember it but still reported him to the police. My mom never trusted Grandma to watch me again after that. But I know if she'd arrived even 10 minutes later, who knows what would have happened to me. It made me appreciate the Quranic teaching, Allah is the best of guardians, realizing how close I came to danger. Story 10. Living in the Walls by Kevin Anderson. I recently moved out on my own and already have a horror story. My new place isn't fancy, just a small house for 1 or 2 people. But right away, I started hearing weird sounds coming from inside the walls. First in the kitchen, then the bathroom, and by night 3, even in my bedroom. I figured some animal must be living in there, and I just had to get rid of it. The next morning, I barely had enough milk for cereal. I couldn't believe how fast I was going through food. That night, I woke up to the sound of breathing. Not my breathing, but someone else's. I flipped on the lamp, and it stopped. I tried convincing myself it was just my imagination playing tricks. The following day was really hot, so I turned on the AC for the first time. I checked every vent, and some weren't blowing any air, including the one by my bed. I shined a flashlight in and saw there wasn't even a duct behind it, just empty wall space. Whatever air system had been there was removed. Unfortunately, I never inspected that before buying the place. That night, I had to sleep in the heat with no AC, so I was tossing and turning for hours. Then I started hearing the breathing again, but this time I was wide awake. It was definitely real and coming from my left. I looked over at the air vent and shined the flashlight in. What I saw made me scream and drop it instantly. There was someone's face peering through the vent cracks. The first thing I noticed were their eyes wide open and glowing in the darkness. I bolted out of there, screaming the whole way. I soon discovered there was a dangerous homeless man living inside my walls who'd been eating my food since I moved in. It was a chilling reminder of the Quranic verse, "And we have already created man and know what his soul whispers to him," realizing the hidden dangers that can lurk so close to home.